Hi everyone, welcome back. I am excited and nervous to have this conversation with you all today, so bear with me. I have, throughout this process of doing this podcast, I always have shared my journey of learning, right? And the deep feeling and the deep knowings that come through. And I have always shared them through the perspective of my existence and my life to give examples of how that energy can be expressed or is being expressed in my hologram or my experience, my perspective. And something has shifted in me where it feels like now is a time that I'm able to go deeper. And I have throughout the time of my beginning of this journey had depths. Like I've had, things bring me to the depths of my soul. And I've shared a lot of that with you guys. And I've always been on this journey of I'm just sharing my reality, but I'm not a teacher. And there have been more insights and downloads that have come that I've held back from sharing because number one, it takes me time to digest and understand them in a fuller, richer way versus just receiving a download and understanding a new perspective. It's also a waiting for my material cells to absorb what that message is to where it becomes truth, right? So it's I would call it like a discerning process. And then even if I have discerned it to the point where I feel it as truth or I feel it as my reality, that doesn't mean that everybody that listens to this story of the leap of faith is also at that point of opening that they can also digest what I'm experiencing. So in saying that, I have reserved myself from sharing the more things that they're not even outlandish, but the things that make me a little bit... Okay, I'm going to explain it like this. You guys know I want to become a teacher and I have a structure, but as with everything with energy, there is a time to move that forward. And you can have this masculine energy of a push and okay, this is where I see myself going and this is how I see it laid out or planned out. But until you receive the knowing that now is the time, there's no point in pushing it forward because the actual message won't be heard. And when you work with energy and I know we all are doing this in our own ways, so I don't want to refer to this as just me, but when you become in flow with life, you feel the cycles of it and you know when time is not ready to reveal certain things. So I have gotten the go-ahead that I can share some deeper insights that are ready to be shared. So first I want to talk about how you guys have found yourselves to this channel and this teaching. Every one of us come in with a way of sharing a light code, okay? Now, I wrote down some things like it can be through hearing. This is how light codes are shared. It can be through listening. It can be through a visual, like a art or a movie. It can be through sound, like music or harmony or singing. It can be through movement, which would be like dancing and like a ritual. I'm feeling like tribal dancing, and even people that are able to move light language through their body. It's all light that's being expressed in this material plane, coming through in our own unique ways. Now, I've known for a long time that my light codes are being expressed most clearly through my voice. And I know this because it's been reflected back to me. Most people that are here speak about how my voice has a resonance with them. So in saying that, I know that I've chosen this medium as a way to express my light codes to whoever is ready to hear them. And I'm bringing this up because when you are in full embodiment of those codes, those downloads, those messages, however they're moving through your body, you are then a beacon. You become like a satellite dish beacon that you're like putting out the pulse of your light essentially. So when you are doing that, what the exchanges and what happens when one of us I'm going to say one of you on that side of the equation hears that beacon and is drawn to the source of that beacon, it's because there is an initiation or an activation that beacon, that radio signal is going to share with you. Now think about our lives. Like, we are constantly using all of our senses to be activated. And that can be both in light or in denser energies. It goes across the whole board, the whole spectrum. So when I'm speaking to you, I am trying to bring as much light consciousness to you in mostly, and I'm thinking back on how I do it now consciously, I'm thinking about it. Mostly it's through emotion, and it's through vulnerability. It's through putting down my walls and sharing the most intimate sides of myself. And that to me has become, at least at this point in my journey, how I feel the most resonance to share my codes that I'm here to bring. Now, the reason that this conversation is like the prequel to what I want to talk about is because I want to give a disclaimer that when we tune into anyone's codes, whether it be the media, the news, a spiritual person, a teacher, a religious leader, any kind of code that you're receiving, and I've talked about this before, is the discernment to feel into the body and what does it bring up in your body. Because that will be a clear indicator of if it is reigniting your DNA to remember that resonance in your own body, or it, like for me, if there isn't a resonance, there's what will happen typically for me is that my mind starts swirling onto other things. Like, I start thinking of other things. I'll grab my phone and do two things at once. There's not a resonance. There's not a full absorption of that code, let's say. So when I am sharing anything really, it's an invitation to be initiated and to be activated in that remembrance. Now, sometimes when someone presents new material to you that you haven't digested before, it can feel like I don't believe that, I don't resonate with that, but I still feel like a draw to this, let's say, YouTube channel. What is happening there is that it's like the first initial shock of that remembering makes you feel like a little bit assaulted, because you're like, I don't know that for me, I don't hold that as my truth. But what's happening is it's if you think about lighting a candle, it's that initial spark of the lighter that's jarring you, and why it feels uncomfortable is that your vibration isn't yet there in resonance to receive fully that flame, but that spark feels like intense, right? And what's happening there is it's just igniting that memory in your DNA to accept what's now coming down the pipeline and what you're now ready to receive. Now, for me personally, this has come through in teachers. At first, I'll be like, this doesn't resonate at all. And then I'll go back, like, let's say months later and try to regroup and reabsorb. And it's like right on. So sometimes that initial initiation, well, it's not, even though it's time because it's come into your field, it needs landing. Like how I was saying that when I get messages or downloads, it takes time for me to discern them in my body, because the whole point is that if we keep these messages up in the ether or in our higher chakras, we aren't grounding it here on this planet. So when you feel that kind of uncomfortableness of this is new information for me, I just encourage everybody to sit with that and understand that it is an activation and an initiation into something that you were already you already planted this moment in your timeline to come back to be open to something that is new information possibly. So when people talk about activating you or initiating you, what's happening on a timeline level is that I'm starting to bring seeds into your own consciousness to bring you up to a higher timeline. And we are doing this constantly. So throughout the week of my wedding, I had some of my very closest people in my life here, and this message came to me that because we had many days before the wedding that we were able to just visit and, hang out. And what happened is that I had this feeling that having that time, space, days or moments was just an opportunity for both me to initiate them and activate them in what my life is now about, and also vice versa. So for example, one of Richard's sisters was visiting, and I think like maybe 2 days in, she wanted to go to a crystal store. And I knew, okay, she's feeling me. She already is picking up on my vibration. Now she's a much younger soul, or not younger soul. She's a younger person than I am. And, I believe, as all younger generations, they come in with codes that are already way more open than my generation. And it didn't surprise me that she was the first to open up to it, right? And then by the end of their trip here, she was here with her boyfriend. He was just so lovely as well, and I ended up giving him my Moldavite incense, because between the two of them, I just was already feeling the opening to what I was sharing. So that's just one example of an activation. But as I said, we're constantly getting those activations from everything. So think about the news and media and how people will take in information and just regurgitate it. Like you can tell they believe it as truth, and then they just regurgitate and bring that forward into the world, and that becomes their perception and their reality in their matrix of life. So activation comes, like I said, in every form, not just in higher vibrations, but also in the matrix and in really every walk of life. So I'm sharing this with you because I am taking this next leap of faith into myself, and going to share with you how I believe that our planet and how we are going to be ascending. Now, before I share that, I want you guys to know that this is just my perspective. Something that really feels like a sandpaper on my whole system is when someone speaks their truth as the truth, as the ships are coming and we need to get on those ships. that doesn't resonate with me, and it never has. And it doesn't matter, right? I just tune it out, and it's not my vibration. However, there are a lot of people that will take stock into someone else's reality and take it as their truth. So as I share this with you, I just want you to know this is my perspective. This is what I have felt. This is what I've seen. This is how I feel that it's going to go down as far as I know at this point. And I think it's all beautiful, and there's no fear in any of it, but I feel like it's time to share it. And I hope that you guys are able to receive it. And as I said, just sit with it. Whatever comes up for you, just sit with it and see how you feel into it. Because ultimately, it's that initial spark that is trying to initiate you into a different timeline and opening up your consciousness to something different than what you already are currently aware of. Okay, so first I want to say that this information came to me, I believe, back in August, and it was like a many sequences of events that trickled in over a couple week period, and ultimately brought me what I now feel is happening. I'm going to say it basically has always been in my life, this feeling of that I am here to do something. And I think that most of us carry that feeling. You know, even the quest of spirituality, the reason that it even ignites in your system is because you know that there's something more than what this life presents. And I remember knowing as a child that there was some reason that I was here, because I remember sitting in my room at one point in my life where I could leave. I don't know why, but I felt like if I wanted to at that moment, I could leave. But then what came over me was this sense of, but no, because there's so much here to do and learn and grow with and change. And it's a memory that's like I mean, I had to have been maybe 10. But I had this knowing that there was a purpose of why I was here. Now, I don't know, and I didn't obviously know what that meant, but it was such a vivid memory in my childhood that I always kept it like, you know, there, and I was curious about it. And I would say the bigger drive of probably everyone that is on this kind of quest in their own inner self is trying to bring through that, I guess, contract, or that knowing that you're here for something more than just, you know, finding the love of your life and the job of your dreams and the children and the home, and all of that is what the matrix is. And if you feel like that isn't enough, that means that you're here to do more. So that feeling is, I believe, what causes that angst, which then leads to the dark night, which then blooms you forward into knowing that there's more. And, you know, I've gone through those stages, and I think those stages are constantly a circle, right? So we're constantly going to be going back over them because there's deeper levels that we're here to get to. But ultimately, I'm just going to get to it. The first inclination that I had of what we actually are as vessels here is, I was reading into a friend of mine and her energy came in like, I called it a blender. It looked like the blades of a blender, that are, you know, going around and around, and they're able to catch that, let's say the smoothie food, to blend it up, but it has reach. Like those blades are out and they're rotating in a spin. And I was explaining that to her, and that was like the first trickle of me understanding that the energy was coming from the ethers through her body and then pushing out into the planet. And then from there, like within a week or two, I just kept getting more information. And then as I was like creating the program that I was working on, I started like knowing that there were certain topics that would be more for advanced learning. And it was these energies that kept coming through to me were like this tornado energy, this I don't know how else to describe it. Like, I think I've called it like a hurricane. Like it's this spiral of energy that's coming down into the planet. And I called it the avatar, and I didn't understand what that meant. And then I had a past life regression, which helped me understand it in a more conscious way. Because that was one of my questions is, why do I keep feeling avatar? What is this behind an avatar? And in that regression, I found that avatars are like the Jesus Christ or the Buddha or the energies that incarnated into this planet in physical form as a soul avatar. But at this time in our planet, we have avatar energies that are moving through vessels into the planet to help its evolution. And there is this number of 144,000 that has come up throughout history. I know it's in the Bible. I know spiritual people talk about it. And I know that it's these supposed chosen ones. But the way it's been shown to me is it's not like how we in this dimension have, like, it's so black or white, good or bad, and you try to put these 144,000 people on this pedestal of bringing forward the new planet. But the way that it is shown to me is it's just energy that has, like, let's say you've embodied a vessel that is capable to open up the chakras enough to allow that energy to move through the chakra system. So what an avatar is this energy that is pulling from the ethers and the higher dimensions, that all through your monad to your oversoul to your soul, then down through your crown and down through the body and then into the earth. Now, if we go back, I think it's over a year ago, I talked about activating the diamond light matrix, which was planting the crystal in the earth and meditating on that crystal. Well, the reason that is that it literally is anchoring that energy through your vessel into the earth and clarifying it before it hits Mother Earth. So what this looks like is, if you've ever seen like those old oil mines or oil towers where it literally is a vortex of energy going into the earth, like a funnel into the earth. And the way it was shown to me is that these 144,000 people are those ports. They look like ports of open, like cyclonic energy that is moving through that vessel into the earth and anchoring into the earth's grid. Now, this energy is happening. There's obviously many people that are doing it. Some people are doing it consciously, others are doing it unconsciously. But it doesn't matter, because the point is that you agreed to embody this energy in this incarnation. So, like, sometimes people will say to light carriers, you don't need to do anything. You just need to be you. Well, the reason people say that is because literally light is emanating out of every pore of your body by just being on this planet. Because why? You're pulling that avatar energy through your vortex, through your body and down into the earth. So what happens is that then your reach of that light is just pushing all around you. And when people come into your sphere, they can't help but be activated. You don't even always have to say anything, right? Like it just is. It's just this, it either makes people really uncomfortable or it makes them enveloped in you and they want to be around you as much as possible. So the way that it was shown is that it looked like this sphere, the Earth, and then it had all of these vortexes, like what brought to mind when I saw it was what the picture of the coronavirus actually, and I'll put up on the screen what this looks like, but it's like these little points off of a sphere, and that's what it looked like. The people on the globe are literally those almost like acupuncture points, and they're all spread out all over the world, anchoring their energy from the avatar down through their bodies into the planet. And then they said, because I was like, well, when is this going to happen? And of course, us in this reality, we have a timeline. But in truth, time doesn't exist. So it's happening now. It is what it is. But they said that we create our own timeline in our own reality. So, for example, there have to be 144,000 people ready to receive that energy and anchor it into the planet. And what that means is that nothing will happen until we as a collective are ready for it to happen. There needs to be like a ratio of light to what we currently have to like activate that ascension. So basically when people say that there's going to be this huge solar flare and it's going to, obliterate or separate the earth. What I feel is that when that every anchor is connected to the grid, it will be an evolution that happens. To me, it feels like a peaceful evolution, because ultimately, even if it's unconscious, we know that this change is already happening. And when we hit that point where all of those, all 144,000 anchors are connected and allowing that energy to move through their vessels, it will feel like, this is how it feels. It feels like, and then it's like, yes, like it's a huge inhale of the cleanest, purest light source energy that you have ever experienced. So it's not like when we think of a flash, like it's going to be terrible. No, it's going to be an inhale of who you are, and then an exhale into a new experience. And now, I also believe that, and I have said this before, I'm already living in a land that is in the fifth dimension. Now, I've talked about how it's already in a basin, or like, we figured out that we're actually 7 stories below the actual street level. So we are down into a valley. And in that, I'm surrounded by nature. And in that, I've created this, or not I have found myself living in a crater, essentially. A valley, a crater that is, if you think about it, pulling that vortex energy, funneling it through the earth down to a tinier point, or a very specific point in this planet, or in this planet. Also, my address, and this is just a little wink from the universe, is 1444. And I knew, like when I saw that number, it was more about the 444 that I knew we were home, because to me that's angelic. It's like this resonance of knowing that I'm surrounded by love. And now I know that it is a, I don't know, I guess it's a synchronicity. Let's just call it that. But it's also a responsibility, because now that I understand what's happening and why we are here, why everybody that is embodying their light has this desire to share that. Like, it is beyond human, this desire to like throw yourself out there and just activate or initiate as many people as possible that are of your vibration. That's what happens once you embody those codes, which I said, it can be through your voice, it can be through a visual, you could be an artist, it could be through sound and your voice of music, or your rhythm and the way you play instruments, or the movements that your body does. All of those ways are how you're anchoring your light. So when you get that impulse to give to yourself and do self-care so that light can be anchored, that's what's happening. They're trying to say, this is how you're here to bring it through. Are you ready to open to your vortex? Are you ready to open to the avatar? Are you ready to really allow that energy to move through you? Because essentially, look, in our energy circle the other day, one of the members, one of my sisters, she embodies movement, and she has gotten synchronicities telling her she needs to move her body, she needs to dance, but yet she's letting her, or at this point, she has let her external world dictate and take that piece of her away or put it on a shelf. And so this is why I'm saying this ascension isn't going to happen without us all being ready for it too. So you have people that are fully blown open and just funneling that energy, right? And then you have those that are like, they've gotten inklings, they know what they're here to do, they've stepped their toes in it, but they aren't ready to jump. And because we have this spectrum of all, people at all different rungs of the ladder, it won't happen until we choose that we as a collective are ready for it to happen. So, to me, this feels like the most organic and natural way for our star beings to work on this planet in an organic way. No one's forcing anything to happen. It's not something that's going to shock us. It's something that we as a collective knew we were coming to do, but nothing evolves without everybody evolving at the same time. So what I feel about this is it gives me peace. It makes me know that putting out messages like this are just, again, an activation into yourself for you to find that light code that you're here to embody and just start playing with it. Because that's the other thing, is that our minds and our egos want to make it something that has to be difficult, or that is, you have to stress about it, or am I good enough, or will they think I'm crazy? All of that is the adult ego, where the child would just go out and do it and play with it, and it doesn't matter. It's like this crazy flush of energy that just wants to move through you. And in a way, it's letting go of the attachment to it, right? Like, that's why when I talk, I'm able to share the most intimate details of my life in a way that I don't have attachment to it, because it's not me sharing. And I know that sounds, like, what? And this is why I said last week in that show, the OA, they showed it as a movement. That's just one example. It's allowing it to move through you for something that is much bigger than we as humans could ever do on our own. And understanding that if you are here to be one of those 144,000 people, just breathe. Just breathe. Don't get ahead of the process. Like, I know I'm in the process. I don't know what's going to happen. The deeper I get into the movement, the more that is revealed, because my resonance and my ego has set down the I need to have this proven. I need to have this backed up. It's like my ego has opened up enough to receive this message, right? And to embody and now share something that someone that is needing the proof wouldn't be able to. And, that's perfect too. But at this point, I just want you guys to open your hearts and when I even say that, I mean open your heart to yourself. And ultimately, okay, this is another thing that they showed me. In the chakra systems, they're all spinning. And I know that we've talked about or people say that chakras can be blocked. They're not blocked. What it is there's this, I've called it peanut butter. It's like a sticky substance. I've heard other people refer to it as a clay. The chakras get this like gooey, sticky energy that's clogged in there. But the chakra is still spinning. But the problem is that vortex of avatar energy that wants to move through the system, it's like trickling because those chakras are sticky. They aren't free flowing and moving. So I'm going to share with you guys a book that's called Healing the Chakra Workbook, and I'll put it here so you can see it, and I'll link it below. It can start helping you move through your stickier, and again, you can use your intuition on where you feel. As you go through this workbook, you'll understand which are the points that feel sticky. Because why? It's uncomfortable to do the workbook. And what ultimately we're trying to do is clear out those sticky cogs in the wheel, because once that is cleared, then that energy, that funnel can go through you completely. So then I also asked, how come I don't have to go and meditate on my buried crystal anymore? So on let's say on important cycles, I will go to it, or important days, but in general, I don't need to use that anchor anymore because I've anchored it into our land, and the land knows that it's going, that this is my anchoring point. So remember when I was going to the cliffs and they told me I can't go there anymore. It's not my point. And remember, I wanted to go there. I felt like I love going to the cliffs. I love seeing the ocean. I love the water, but it was a clear no, because they were waiting for me to figure out and find where my anchor was going to be. Because that was a public space. It was like, this was where you were supposed to cultivate and understand what you were going to do. But now that you've figured that out, we've got to find you an actual basin to anchor in. So now that I am anchored, I don't have to be just on that crystal. So you'll, again, use your intuition with this and feel into it. Don't force anything. Like, that's another thing that they're very clear about. Nothing is a forced movement. If your ego is forcing you to get up and meditate every day and, do things that others have said this is how you get there, a lot of it is some people, and this is a beautiful thing about all souls, we all are at different levels of connection. So some people do not need to meditate every day. If it feels like it's not necessary and you are connected in your everyday movements, they're telling you, that's it. Like, your mind is clear enough to receive outside of your daily life. But if you're in your daily life and it's like so bogged down with information and kids and work, and that's usually when it is necessary to take that space for yourself. So the point is that to find yourself where you are able to receive this funnel of energy and this vortex of energy, it's going to be different for every single one of us, but ultimately what they're ready to share is that, and this is how I feel it, is that we are all them. Now, there have been people that I have met that are not them. And this is the most beautiful part, is that in the souls that are maybe not one of those anchoring points, they've agreed to be it's like what we would call it in this planet would be an assistant, but it's not even that. It's like you're a fractal of yourself that is here to help perfect what you came to do. So for example, my mom, I would say she's not an anchoring point, but yet she gave birth to me and she's in my energy all the time. And she's able to withstand it and be around it and even initiate off of it. And that means like her soul is also on this path of ascension, but she's just not anchoring that energy through her. And literally the vessel itself is just a tool. Like think about the needle that carries the energy through acupuncture. This vessel is just literally the needle. There's nothing better about a needle than not a needle. There is no one's better than the other. So I want you guys to know that you can have people in your lives, as long as they're able to be in your field, they of course are ascending with you. They wouldn't be able to be even around you. You would make them so uncomfortable to even be in your presence if that was the case. So just take that off the table and allow yourself to just expand your field even more, because you don't have a fear of it not being the people that are around you, like, and then you think like, okay, well, how can I even include more? Like my neighbors and strangers at the grocery store. How can I push out my vortex where I don't even have to have a conversation with the person, but I know that my energy is pushing out enough that I'm pulling them in. And even if it's in the grocery store aisle, you're giving them a dose of you. You're giving them a dose of that energy, which maybe they'll feel like, whoa, that feels weird. But just like that initiation spark, at first it will. And then the body starts to digest it, and then it starts to feel into it, and then it starts to find that code within the DNA strands that opens up and activates. So I hope all of this makes sense. And I want to share one other thing, which I forgot to last week. I'm going to share this image of the land that we live on. The 2 days before our wedding, we were all out at the pool. It was a beautiful day. And all of a sudden, the clouds started coming in, and one of the guests here looked on their phone and they said, oh, it's going to rain in a few minutes. And we're like, what? So we, take everything in, and within 5 minutes, this like hurricane force winds start coming through and just pounding rain. And all of a sudden, as we're like trying to run and get everybody inside, I see this rainbow go across the land. And I'll share two photos. The first one will be the picture that we took from our laundry room, because we couldn't even go outside the laundry room because the wind was so intense. It was just blowing everything, and it was pouring rain. So we got one picture of this rainbow that went over the whole land. And then like an hour later, on our town's Facebook group, there was a real estate agent that was using a drone to take pictures of a property, and it was outside of that sphere of rainbow. And he took a picture of it from outside of the chaos. And it's the most beautiful bubble of light that came over this land. And I had never seen anything like this before. And the message that I got about that was that it was literally a clearing and a protection that was put over this space again. And I feel like these are the signs that start to show up without you having to do anything. And sometimes you have to sit with them. And I did have to sit with that for a couple days, because then a couple days later, we got another double rainbow going over the property as well. So there is protection, there is clearing that's happening, and it's for the benefit of the planet. It's beautiful. It's like when there is stagnant energy that is ready to move through, you're going to have storms, you're going to have hurricanes, you're going to have earthquakes, and it's perfect. It's literally the earth herself adjusting to the grid that is changing within her, right? Because the more points that are activated and turned on, it shifts the whole energetic system. So everything shifts. And we're going to see that as we move forward into this ascension, which, do I believe it's in our lifetime? I hope so. I hope that I am here to witness it and I am ready for it. But I'm also, as a human, understanding that what we think it takes 10 years is forever. That's a blink of an eye in the big picture, right? So I'm trying to not be attached to any timeline and just to be present and doing my job while I'm here. So I hope that this is helpful, and I really want you guys to understand, not just with whatever I'm saying. This is just one perspective of what's happening. And so when I say the energies are intense right now, it's because the shift, there has been more anchoring into the grid. And one other thing I want to talk about is there is a term called grid workers. And I asked, are these 144,000 people grid workers? And the answer I got was not necessarily. So grid workers are the people that understand the flow and are able to anchor themselves within these pressure points on the earth. But there will be others that will come and they won't know and they won't understand that. So it's not necessarily that it has to be a grid worker, but it's somebody that understands that they're here for a purpose that's much, much bigger than them. And if you have had that feeling in your heart all along, the chances are that you are one of them. And all I want to say to that is just please open up your heart and share as much light as you can.